Hello and welcome back everyone to the third and final part of grading every single team and driver of the 2022 Cup Series season. Just going to get right into it here, starting with Eric Almirola. Almirola just barely cracked the top 20 in points this year and puts together a very average or even below average season by his and Stewart-Haas racing standards. It's about a 50-50 shot every year if Almirola is going to get a win, but this year with the Cup Series record-tying 19 different winners, Almirola needed to win more than ever to get locked into the playoffs, and that he did not. Only one driver, Ryan Blaney, made the playoffs without winning, and even he would not have made it in if not for Kurt Busch's career-ending injury. This was the first time since joining Stewart-Haas Racing in 2018 that Eric did not qualify for the playoffs, which is obviously a huge disappointment. But on the bright side, his stats were up from 2021 with the same number of top fives, two more top 10s with 7 total, and an average finish improvement from 19.9 to 17.8. This might be a bit misleading, though, as 2021 was a major step down for his average finish compared to a career-high 12.8 in 2018 and a 13.3 as recently as 2020. With all that said, I feel that Almirola is still deserving of a C-, and not to be negative, I don't see him really improving noticeably a whole lot for the remainder of his career. He was supposed to retire at the end of this year, but apparently he's going to keep going for another year or two. And next is Bubba Wallace. He came in 19th in the final standings, but that is definitely not accurately described his very intensely up and down 2022 season. Starting with the bad news this time, apart from his runner-up in the Daytona 500, the first part of Bubba's season was very similar to 2021, which is not a good thing. Besides Daytona, he only had one other top 10 in the first 19 races. And of course, the blind road rage incident with Kyle Larson at Las Vegas completely spoiled all the good momentum Wallace had built up in the later part of the season. And it ended, of course, with him being suspended the following week. As for the good news, though, beginning at New Hampshire, Wallace put together a streak of 3 top 5s in 4 races, including one at a road course, which he's known to struggle at. By far, however, Bubba's season highlight was his win at the Fall Kansas race in dominating fashion. And just like that, Bubba confirmed he does belong in Cup and will likely be a playoff threat next year. After the roller coaster that was 2022, he ended up with 1 win, 5 top 5s, and 10 top 10s, along with an 18.3 average finish and 7 DNFs. To average out all the good and bad, I'll give Wallace an average grade, a C+. Eric Jones finished 18th in points, which is absolutely criminal to say given the incredible season he had with Petty GMS. Besides outperforming his teammate Ty Dillon weekly, Eric got back to victory lane at Darlington, although it did come too late for him to qualify for the playoffs. In hindsight, this won't matter a whole lot to Eric's career, as this year was simply a building one for him and Petty GMS in general. By notching that win, 3 top 5s, 13 top 10s, and increasing his 2021 average finish of 19.7 with RPM up to a 16.3 this year, it was clear that Jones had adapted quickly to the next-gen car and can be counted on long-term and built around by Petty GMS. By far the most impressive feat of Eric's season this year, however, is that in the full season points without the playoffs, he would have finished 16th, only 29 points out from 13th. There were certainly a lot of highs for the 43 team this year and not that many lows, only 5 DNFs. And overall, I would say Eric is worthy of an A-. We saw huge improvement out of both Jones and Richard Petty's team this past season, and I expect only more to come from them next year. And next up is the driver who got by far the shortest stick of the season, Martin Truex Jr. Despite finishing 7th in full season non-playoff points, Truex finished a staggering 17th in the official point standings. The sole reason for that is because he did not win. Similar to what I was saying with Almirola, this season was absolutely not one to go winless in, and for the first time since 2014, Truex did just that. Well, this year was a pretty big downgrade for Truex from previous seasons in every measurable category. It's not like he wasn't close to winning races. In fact, he had 7 stage wins. That's as many as the champion, Joey Logano. But with his failure to win or make the playoffs, on top of netting a whopping 9 less top 5s than in 2021 with only 4 total, as well as 5 less top 10s with 15 total, 2022 was a huge setback for Truex, especially for his and Joe Gibbs' racing standards. It does seem overall like a complete fail of a season, especially with how much the current point system values winning. But because of his decent consistency and a 572 lap sled, I'll pass him with a flat D, and I hope to see Truex return to his winning ways next year. And finally, the playoff drivers. Coming in last in the playoffs was Alex Bowman. You could certainly just brush that off as it being due to his concussion that sidelined him for 5 races. But even if that were not to have happened, I'm not sure Bowman would have really fared too much better. With only 1 win coming very early in the year at Las Vegas, only 4 top 5s and 12 top 10s, I would argue Bowman underperformed by Hendrick Motorsports standards even before his injury. Besides Las Vegas and a runner-up at COTA, Bowman simply wasn't competing for wins like a Hendrick Motorsports driver is expected to. And to go further, over the course of the entire season, he only won 2 stages and only led 137 laps. I just don't think there's any way that can be twisted to look good. Overall, I think Bowman's performed slightly below average, so I'm going to give him a slightly below average grade of a C-. Kevin Harvick, who finished 15th in the standings, was looking like he was going to add another year onto his winless streak, up until Michigan, where he finally broke through after leading 38 laps to take home the win. Then he proceeded to go back-to-back the next week at Richmond. While these would be his only 2 wins, Harvick's signature consistency prevailed throughout the whole season, with 9 top 5s and 17 top 10s, along with an average finish of 14.3. Unfortunately, when it mattered most in the playoffs, he had back-to-back DNFs and was eliminated from the round of 16. To add insult to injury, he was hit with a 100-point penalty for part modification after Talladega, suspiciously after giving heavy criticism to NASCAR about the next-gen safety issues. Now, without the penalty, Harvick still would have only come in 12th in points, so his playoff run was definitely a failure. Also, besides the 2 wins, his stats were down across the board compared to last year, even in laps led. With all things considered, I think Harvick still had a below-average season compared to what we would expect from him, but it was a good season in general. For that, I'll give him a flat B-. Speaking of guys who underperformed in the playoffs, next up is Tyler Reddick. Based on his middle of the season performance, I would have expected Tyler to be a round of 8 contender, but instead he was eliminated from the round of 16. A lot of that can be seen from his average finish of 17.6 and his 8 DNFs. Tyler just had no consistency when it mattered most, and however, with his first, second, and third career Cup wins coming this season, along with 10 top 5s, 15 top 10s, and 503 laps led, you cannot say he had a bad season by any means. If he had performed at all in the playoffs, you'd be looking at an easy A, but instead he got beat out by his teammate Austin Dillon and a struggling Kyle Busch, so that's going to drop him down to a flat B. Kyle Busch, as a matter of fact, is up next. Without backing into his win at Bristol Dirt after Reddick and Briscoe took each other out, he'd be looking at the same type of season as Truex, battling for 17th in points. That's not how it went, however, and Kyle was able to record his 1 win, 8 top 5s, and 17 top 10s, as well as an average finish of 16.7, all with the common consensus being that Joe Gibbs wasn't putting too much focus on the 18 team, as it was decided Kyle would be leaving the team at the season's end. And while I expect Kyle to go back to his winning ways next year with RCR, 2022 was well below average and a near repeat of 2020 for Kyle. At one point over the summer, Kyle even went 8 straight races without a top 10. Coupling that with a round of 16 elimination from the playoffs gives me no choice but to give him a C- for his rather disappointing season. Next up is Daytona 5 champion and Rookie of the Year Austin Cindric. While he struggled a bit after his win, only nabbing 1 other top 10 in the first 15 races, Cindric really soon turned it around and ended the season with 1 win, 5 top 5s, and 9 top 10s with an average finish of 16.3. As far as rookie seasons go, Cindric did about as good as you can reasonably expect him to. He kept it clean with only 4 DNFs, and he survived through the round of 16 before getting eliminated in the round of 12 and finished 12th overall in points. Cindric had a quiet but solid rookie year, and for that I'll give him a B+. Some guys like Eric Jones and Truex got the short end of the stick in the playoffs, while guys like, Austin Dillon significantly benefited from it. After winning the final race of the regular season at the infamous Summer Daytona Wreckfest, Austin Dillon locked himself into the playoffs after being previously well out of contention the week before. A fine example of winning you're in, Dillon was quickly eliminated from the first round, but kept chugging along to net himself a career-tying best 11th place points finish. Although some would say his win and therefore playoff run in general were pretty luck-based, Dillon still improved upon last year, earning 4 more top 5s with 5 total, and 3 more top 10s with 11 total. However, his average finish fell from a 14.4 to a 16.5, and also the fact that he beat his teammate Reddick in final points is a prime example of why the playoffs are broken. All things considered, Dillon had a good season and used the playoffs to his advantage, so in my eyes, he earned a flat B this year. Next is Daniel Suarez, who landed in the top 10 in points after making the playoffs for the first time, as well as securing his first career win at Sonoma. This season, no team showed more improvement overall than Trackhouse, as both the returning Suarez and their new driver Ross Chastain excelled in every way possible. For Suarez, on top of finally winning in his 6th full-time Cup season, he tallied up career highs in top 5s with 6 and top 10s with 13. His average finish also improved all the way from a 20.1 in 2021 to a 16.5 this year. For Suarez, 2022 will be remembered as the year he proved he belonged in the top division of NASCAR, and I expect to see the number 99 car even more competitive in 2023. The only thing going against Suarez is that Chastain was consistently running better, although not by any worrisome margins. Overall, I'd say Suarez is worthy of a B+. Chase Briscoe had a similar story to Austin Dillon this season. He won once during the regular season, did nothing else, and then just popped off in the playoffs. Including his win at Phoenix, Briscoe had a total of 4 top 10s entering the playoffs, the worst of any playoff driver. Despite this, Briscoe somehow, someway made it count when it mattered most, advancing all the way to the round of 8 and finishing a very strong 9th in the final standings. In fact, in the 10 playoff races, Briscoe earned 6 top 10s and 3 top 5s, more of each than he had during the entire regular season. Based on your own views, this could be considered a prime example for why NASCAR should uphold the playoffs or abolish them completely. Anyways, hate the game, not the player, and Briscoe just one hell of a player. Seriously though, the beginning of this season looked like a great step up from 2021, but he just fell into a huge slump after winning and accomplished nothing for far too long to get an A or even a flat B. But because of his huge clutch up and good momentum heading into next year, I'll send him off with a B-. If not for Kurt Busch's career-ending injury, Ryan Blaney would have wound up battling Truex for 17th in points, but instead, the winless number 12 driver advanced all the way to the round of 8 and finished the season with 12 top 5s and 17 top 10s. After finally getting multiple wins in his season last year, this year he went without a win for the first time since his first full-time season in 2016. Similar to Truex, it's not like Blaney wasn't in contention for wins. Actually, he had the most stage wins out of any driver with a whopping 9. He also led 636 laps, 213 more than last year when he won 3 times. In my opinion, Blaney just got hit with a lot of bad luck this year in terms of winning, but his consistency still showed and saved him from what could have been an abysmal points finish. All in all, I'll give Blaney a flat B, and I expect him to be a big championship threat in 2023. All throughout the 2022 season, Kyle Larson was hailed as the defending series champion, but he certainly wasn't as dominant as last year. I don't think really anyone expected, realistically, for a full repeat of his comeback season last year, and by no means did he perform poorly this year. With 3 wins, 13 top 5s, 19 top 10s, and an average finish of 14.1, for any other driver this would have been looked at as a very successful season. The only thing potentially keeping Larson out of reach of an A is his early and unexpected elimination from the round of 12. This ended up not affecting him that much as he went on to win at Homestead in what my opinion was the drive of the season, winning both stages, all while leaving about an inch between himself and the wall for all 267 circuits. His final finish of 7th in the final points was maybe a few slots lower than he hoped, but is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. With all that said, I'll have to give Larson an A- for 2022. William Byron is basically the Briscoe of Hendrick Motorsports this season, becoming the early championship favorite after winning 2 of the first 8 races. However, I don't think anyone was prepared for what came next. 18 races with 1 top 10. I don't care if he won the championship, he'd still not be getting an A because of that. That is completely unacceptable, especially for Hendrick standards. The first race of the playoffs at Darlington is where that horrific streak stopped, and Byron came alive again, scoring 6 top 10s, including a top 5 in the 10 playoff races to bring home a season total of 2 wins, 5 top 5s, and 11 top 10s, with an average finish of 15.6. Somehow this was good enough to beat Larson in the final standings, but I don't care. Only his rookie year he had fewer top 10s, and his streak of poor runs was becoming a joke during the regular season. Because of that so greatly contrasting his 6th place points finish, I'm going to give him the Briscoe grade, a B-. Hopefully Byron can get his consistency back for next year. Although most have probably forgotten, Denny Hamlin's start of the 2022 season was absolutely miserable. In the first 12 races, Hamlin had 1 top 10, his win at Richmond. One thing after another just went wrong for the 11 team, but eventually things turned around and Denny finished up the season with 2 total wins, 10 top 5s, and 16 top 10s. A solid season even for Joe Gibbs racing standards. How did his championship hopes go? Well, you'll have to ask Chastain about that one. In like 15 years of watching NASCAR, I don't think I've ever seen a single driver get screwed as hard as Denny Hamlin on the final lap of Martinsville. Just imagine being in his shoes, coasting around the final lap, comfortably in the championship 4. The crew chief probably told you the lap before, the closest guy to bumping you out, Ross Chastain, needs to pass 2 guys, and he's not even near anyone. Then, coming out of the final corner, you see a black and red blur moving the speed of sound in your peripheral vision, and it's freaking Ross Chastain. The guy that has dumped you and about half the drivers in the series sporadically throughout the season somehow just passed 5 cars in 1 turn in Martinsville. And then you see the replay. What do you even do at that point? Probably just go back to your trailer and cry. Well, besides what is referred to as the incident, Hamlin had a great recovery in the second half of his season and practically completely made up for his slow start. A 5th place finish in points is great for any driver, but for Hamlin, the long-anticipated championship will have to wait for another year. All things considered, I'll give Hamlin a B+ and a little scratch and sniff sticker out of pity. Now getting into our championship 4 drivers, starting with Chase Elliott. Despite having the most wins, most total points, most laps led, and clinching the regular season championship, Chase Elliott came up very short to winning the real deal due to a failed block on none other than Ross Chastain. Still, Elliott was a top dog nearly all season long with 5 wins, 12 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and an average finish of 12.5. In any traditional points format, Elliott would be champion, but that's not how it's done anymore. There's not much else to say. Elliott deserves an A+ for this year, plain and simple, and he can only hope to repeat it next year, except next time, being a bit more careful around the number 1 car. Well, I've talked about Austin Dillon, Briscoe, Byron all coming alive in the playoffs. No one clutched up more than Christopher Bell, not just this season, but ever in playoff history. Facing elimination from the round of 12 at Charlotte Roval, he took full advantage of the playoff format and he just won. Then, after 2 less than desirable results in the round of 8, Bell once again faced elimination, but passed Briscoe and Keselowski with under 10 laps to go to punch his ticket into the championship 4. Unfortunately for him at Phoenix, he just didn't have a car capable of competing for the win, and he settled for a 3rd place finish in the points. Over the course of his season, Bell posted 3 wins, 12 top 5s, 20 top 10s, and a 13.8 average finish. Bell also took the honors of being the highest finishing Joe Gibbs racing driver in only his 2nd season with the team and 3rd full-time season at all, confirming that Coach Gibbs made the right call by outing Eric Jones for him. Not to mention, Bell improved in nearly every measurable category from 2021, which, combined with everything else, makes me believe Bell is worthy of an A+. Ross Chastain, the biggest meme of the 2022 season, managed to finish runner-up in points. Where do I even begin? First of all, his improvement this year was just unheard of. If this were weightlifting, you'd probably think he's on anabolic steroids, but no. Chastain just went from a 3-win truck season in 2019 to going winless for Colleague in 2020 Xfinity, to finishing 20th in points for Chip Ganassi in Cup last year with only 3 top 5s and 8 top 10s, to just 1 year later, joining a team in his sophomore year, getting 2 wins early in the season, leading the points for a while, and finishing runner-up in the final standings. Not to mention Martinsville. You've all seen it. I talked about it for a while while analyzing Hamlin's year. The single greatest pass or passes in all of stock car, dare I say all of racing history, under pressure to make the championship 4. And on top of that, he was a complete menace during the regular season, making enemies with who knows how many drivers, dumping someone nearly every week for a while, and he just kept going. In the end, he scored those 2 wins, 15 top 5s, 21 top 10s, along with an average finish of 13.3. Normally, I would dock a lot of points for getting involved in as much drama as Chastain did this year, but with his level of improvement results-wise and nearly giving Trackhouse a championship in their second year of operation, I'm still going to give Chastain a flat A. And finally, the last driver on the list and 2022 champion, Joey Logano. With 4 wins, 11 top 5s, 17 top 10s, and an average finish of 13.5, Logano did not have the best statistical season out of every driver, but he was sure close. In the playoff format, he just quietly did what he needed to do. He won right away in the round of 8, instantly locking himself into the championship 4 and giving his team plenty of time to perfect and put all of their focus into their Phoenix setup. And Team Penske did just that, giving Logano a car that absolutely dominated the final race of the season and a car that gave Logano his second Cup Series championship. And I mean, he's a champion, so come on, it's an easy A+. And that'll do it for this video, series, whatever. I'm not sure. Yeah, probably broken into 3 parts at this point, so yeah, if you enjoyed this whole project, put quite a few hours, days into this, so make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy it. And if it gets around 1,000 views or so, I'll make another one for Xfinity and trucks, maybe even ARCA. This, yeah, again, took multiple days to make, so those will definitely not be out immediately. But I'll definitely make them well before the 2023 season starts. And yeah, this is a completely new channel for me. This is my first videos on here and everything, so I plan to cover a lot of the silly season news over the winter and in some smaller, less time-consuming videos. I'll maybe do some like NASCAR Heat 5 videos or news on the next NASCAR game, anything coming out on that if anyone's interested. But yeah, till then, I'll see you next time.